Zandon's poetry in motion. Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over! Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass!
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding-looking horse he is.
Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup. Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
What's going on, everybody? Geo Sette back at you, Past the Wire TV. Delighted that you're here with me today. It's that time of year, a beautiful thing, right? We're right in the middle of the spring appetizers, if you will. It's going to lead to the main course that is the Triple Crown. Big day Saturday. I'm here to cover the Florida Derby from Gulfstream Park and the Arkansas Derby from Oaklawn. Next week, of course, a week after Easter, I think it's April 6th, Past the Wire will be covering. I'll be here for you for the Big Three on Saturday, which is going to be the Wood Memorial, the Bluegrass Stakes from Keeneland, big meet coming up at Keeneland, and of course the Santa Anita Derby. By then, we'll have everything squared away, and we'll have a very fine-tuned, probable, announced field that will make up the 150th, amazing when you think about it, 150 years, 150th Kentucky Derby. All right, so without further ado, get your pens ready. Promise you, you're going to get a wealth of information. A lot of hard, long work, again, but very worthwhile activity, very worthwhile work for you fine people. So be prepared to jot down some notes because it's going to help you in the long run. This so you can make an informed decision at the window. I think the two races Saturday that I'm going to cover are very bettable races, but there's a lot of individual intricate information that you have to absorb so you can make that informed decision at the window, okay? All right, without further ado, I'm very prepared. I'm going to be making references to my notes. I'm going to look at my other screen here, and I'm going to go over horse by horse, and then I'm going to give you a precise Sette order of finish. Where's my water? It's in the kitchen. Anyway, all right, let's start. Gulfstream Park, big card Saturday, race 14. That's 14. Estimated post time, 6:42 p.m. We could all be thankful for daylight savings time. It's still going to be very light out at the time. So race 14, Gulfstream Park, the Florida Derby. And by the way, a little history for you. Florida Derby is no joke. If you look at the history of the Kentucky Derby, 150 years worth, or 149 years worth, without me checking specifically, I would take a guess that the Florida Derby, more than any other prep race, has more winners coming out of the Florida Derby that ultimately win or do very well in the Kentucky Derby. Another race that comes into mind is what's going to happen on April 6th, the Bluegrass over at Keeneland. Because, Keeneland, upscale, got a lot of big-time horses that run at Keeneland. So just keep that in mind. This is an important race. It's a well put together field. I have a couple of strong opinions. In my opinion, right off the bat, there's 11 horses. I firmly believe that 5 have the depths of talent to win this race, but I'm going to be very decisive, meaning if all 5 of my contenders ran their best, they have the capability to win. But I'm going to be decisive and give you first to 11, all right? Precise, so you'll have a good barometer as to where I feel the horse is going to be. And even though I have questions on both ends of the spectrum, you got to be decisive, very important. All right, without further ado, the number 1 is Frankie's Empire. Now, nice colt. A few bullet points on Frankie's Empire. In this race, he's the most experienced in the field. He's got 8 starts, winning 4. Okay? He had 5 starts as a juvenile, 3 starts as a 3-year-old. Third time with Miguel Vasquez, jockey that knows the oval at Gulfstream. His buyers are improving. I like to see that. They're substantially better than they were as a juvenile. So he's sort of coming into his own. And he's got a nice breeze over the track for the race. However, when I matched him up in the whole field, the last race, the Fountain of Youth, I wasn't convinced that it was a strong third. It was a small field. Let's call he got third by default. Just an unspectacular race. I don't know. He's not high on my list. I don't think I'm going to use him in much. Certainly not going to use him on the win end. He's not a contender in my opinion. But, there may be a little flavor of him in the deeper exotics. Number 2 is Hades. Now, by the way, I've listened to all his races, and the track announcer is calling the horse Hades, not Hades. So I got to call him Hades because Pete Aiello is pretty good with his names, and I believe I'm hearing Hades. So Hades is the number 2. A lot of respect for a horse that's got speed. The Joe Orsino barn is one that is successful at Gulfstream. Paco Lopez is up for the 4th time. He's the only rider the horse has had. 3 for 3, winning each time, stretching out each time. He defeated Domestic Product, who won the Tampa Bay Derby. That was the Tampa Bay Derby is the race that we couldn't bet because the tote board went out. I have some reservations, however, with this horse. All right, so he wins the Holy Bull. The race before that, bad state bred field. It didn't matter to me that he won. He won convincingly, but it was a bad field, and he won his maiden on debut, 5.5 panels. All the races over the track. So horse for the course, yes. Speed, yes. Tactical speed. Is it dynamic speed? No. Was he the beneficiary of several things going his way in the Holy Bull? Yes. Most noted, a quarter, 25, a half at 50 and change. That's pedestrian, my friends. He's not going to have that. But he does have a nose for the wire. And believe it or not, he just made my list for contenders. But he's going to be my 5th choice at the end. You'll see. So, Hades, nice looking colt, 3 for 3. Not a dynamic 3 for 3, but I have great respect for his overall body of work. I just think he's right to be defeated and not make it 4 for 4. But I wouldn't blame anybody for using him in a tactical speed, front-running saver to hit the board in your deeper gimmicks. Number 3 is Bail Us Out. Very interesting, and I'll tell you why. All right? Just like Frankie's Empire is the most experienced in the field, Bail Us Out has 2 races. Ran as a juvenile, Bailey, December 30th, over the track. Not that impressive. But what was impressive, and I watched this race a few times, over the synthetic, stretching out to 8.5 furlongs. By the way, this is a $700,000 son of Looking at Lucky. All right, so when you purchase for $700,000 as a yearling, you're expected to win. Irad Ortiz up for Todd Pletcher. Todd Pletcher's won this race several times. It could be, let's see if I can come to a raw number. Could be like 5 or 6 times. I see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. He knows how to prepare horses for this race. This is a bit of a reach, the fact that he's making only his 3rd start. Won just barely in December, at the end of the month as a juvenile. So 2nd start as a 3-year-old. Ran pretty good numbers. And Irad, by default, always adds to the appeal. So I had to look deeper into this, okay? So he's off his maiden special win. I told you about his pedigree and what they paid for him, expected to win. However, his works for the race, rather ordinary. I like to see a little more punch in the works. He's ambitiously entered. You can't, no mistaking that. And this is from the Rapoli stables. Now, you know, some people think, listen, Rapoli's successful for what he does. All right? And Pletcher doesn't fool around this race. So this is not a reach, but they're ambitiously placing him in this race, meaning entering him, and we're going to talk about their main entry. But in this case, you know, it's hard to endorse on the win end because he's got to run brilliantly and others have to falter. And I can't put my money into that. So I'm going to leave him off the board, but I had to give him respectful mentions rather than saying he's just an absolute toss, because of the connections and the fact that, you know, if you watch his race, when he broke his maiden, the race he's coming out of on a synthetic, you know, there was he had to dig down deep. It was a stretch duel. And I like horses that show that, you know, that tenacity, that willingness to win, and he did. All right? And he graduated. Let's move on. Number 4, Grand Mo the First. Grand Mo the First. Turn the page there. 5 races. 3 is a juvenile. Terrible trip, in my opinion, at the Tampa Bay Derby. Finished well. Finished with a sense of urgency. He's the son of Uncle Mo. They paid $135,000 from his yearling. Uncle Mo horses do really well. Victor Barboza is a good quality Florida trainer. His record may not indicate it this year because he's had a lot of near misses, seconds and thirds, but his winning percentage is typically much, much higher. So don't underestimate Barboza. Jaramillo, good, dependable rider, especially at Gulfstream, knows what he's doing. This horse, in my opinion, by default is a contender. He's got steadiness. He's consistent. Do I think he needs to run his career best buyer moving forward? Yeah. But a horse that's steady, compelling, versatile, always comes late, had some trouble, overcame trouble. Not a bad horse to back. Grand Mo the First will make many of my trifecta wagers. I still need to convince myself whether I'm going to use him in my multiples. That's the 4, Grand Mo the First. But a contender, one of the horses on his best day, while others didn't run their best, could win this race. Let's go to the 5. 5 is Real Macho. Castellano's up for the 2nd time. Solid bond too. Rohan Crichton, again, does really well in Florida. However, you know, huge effort to win at the mile going on the optional claimer. He won at a big number, 26-1. He was well back. He didn't have the best of starts, and he just kept on coming, and he persevered. Then in the Fountain of Youth, the field was diminished. I think he was sort of like out of his element. He regressed. You know, then he comes back, and I'm just not a fan of his work for the race. 52-2 breezing on March 16th. I just take him as a cut below now. I don't think he's good enough to beat them. I won't be using him on my tickets. The 6th is Ladam Bro. Very similar to what I just shared with about Real Macho. You know, Fountain Youth race, he did finish second at a big number, but that race was tainted. There were 2 monstrous scratches. You know, the field just kept diminishing and diminishing. And he was the beneficiary of some others not having any kick, and he finished second. I think there was never a doubt that he wasn't a threat to win, and Dornock that won it, he was the winner, but he wasn't spectacular either. So Ladambro will not be used on my tickets. He's in the very tail of my handicap. All right, let's move on to the 7. All right, to get this pronounced right. Catalytic. Now, interestingly enough, all right, very lightly raced colt. All right. Grandsire's Union Rags. I believe the pedigree wants to go long. Began his career back-to-back sprints. 1 sprint as a juvenile, another sprint in his first start as a 3-year-old. Ran equivalent numbers, steady, patient, mature. Wins at first asking at the sprint over the track at Gulfstream. Then they send him to Tampa. You know, I thought he could have done better, but I thought they didn't squeeze the lemon, so to speak, in his second start. Just my personal opinion. And he came late, and he's coming out of the Safi Joseph barn. Safi Joseph is the leading trainer in Florida. He knows how to win. And you get Julien Leperoux. Now, one thing about Julien Leperoux, major upgrade, jockey change from his first 2 riders, all due respect to them. Leperoux has capability on the front end, but he prefers to come from behind, in my opinion. If he gets a lane, this horse stretching out to the 9 furlongs, he's a threat. He made my board of contenders in a race. 3rd start, stretching out, the 2 sprints, a win over the track. I appreciate the connections. The pedigree's okay by me. Must use in your deeper gimmicks. Well, he may crack my multiple race wagers. I'll get into that in a minute or two when I'm near the end. The 8 is Seminole Chief. Seminole Chief had some appealing characteristics of him. All right. However, I'll tell you my pros and cons. All right. This is the gray son of Gervin. If you remember back a few years, Gervin wasn't great, but he was competitive in the Triple Crown fields and runs throughout the spring and summer that year. I'm okay with the connections. Rosario is to his appeal. It's a big step up in my opinion. I'm not enamored by his full body of work. Working on the turf around the dogs for this race. I'm just not sold on it. Could he improve? Could he go forward from his last because he has a win over the track? Yeah. Because something, when a horse is tactical and you got a smart rider, a strong arm rider like Rosario, he could be in a good position. And I feel like he does have distance in his bloodlines. But I don't know. Runs in the mud, doesn't do anything in New York, switches to the synthetic, wins, and then they work him out on the turf, and now they run him in the Florida Derby. I got mixed signals with this. Let's call Seminole Chief capable of bettering my rating. He missed being a real contender in a race for my book, but it wouldn't shock me if he raced and ran well. All right? All right, let's move on. Some of my heavy hitters here. We're going to go to number 9, Conquest Warrior. Extremely interesting colt. The son of City of Light. Tremendous amount of respect for Shug McGahee. $1 million, I repeat this, $1 million as a yearling. He won twice, not once, but twice. When you view his races, in races without a pace, and he still came on strong. I like his works over at Payson Park. He does come off Lasix now, somewhat concerning, but the horse is just showing that he's got natural ability. Races well on debut in the mud at 7 panels, stretches out to a mile, wins, looked defeated, came on, and then he has a second win over the track. Well bet. He's a good horse, a hard hitter, and he should be in the thick of things with a good trip. That's the 9, Conquest Warrior. All right, the 10 is Fierceness. Now let's really dig deep into Fierceness. Fierceness, right off the bat, a lot of people are yelling and ranting and screaming about him being sort of helter-skelter, which on paper is the truth. But if you really dig down deep into all 4 of his races, over 4 different tracks, the race at Saratoga on debut in the mud, all right, simply smashing. He devoured the field, okay? Open lengths. They ambitiously place him into the Champagne, a grade 1 juvenile event. Now, if you watch that race, as the form indicates, he lunged at the start. Bad start, but then more importantly, he made a big move along the backstretch. And, when they were turning for home, it gave you the appearance that he was going to be a big threat. And he just quit. That's the Champagne. So then and by the way, he ate tons of money that day. Then they run him at Santa Anita, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he ran like the wind blows, like he was Forrest Gump. He didn't stop. Dynamic. And who did he beat that day? He beat Muth, which we're going to get into the other race at Oakland Park in the Arkansas Derby. He beat Locked. He wanted a big number. He wasn't backed at the window. And there we go, and we see Johnny V and the Rapoli stables and Todd Pletcher, everybody celebrating, shocked everybody. He beat all the top juveniles and just won like the wind blows again. Sure enough, comes back, first start as a 3-year-old, takes all the money, he's 1-5. I'm not buying anything that at the start it says he was pinballed. I watched it, I stopped it, I paused it, I watched. He wasn't squeezed so terribly. So I'm not making an excuse for him. Johnny recovered him. He was in position to win. Okay? Here's what happened. Turning for home in the Holy Bull. All right? He had every opportunity to draw clear and win, but he was eyeballed when he tried to get past Hades. And then the horse on the outside, Domestic Product, also hit eyes with him. And he flattened out. He hung like a worn-out, cheap chandelier at 1-5. So no excuse to be that empty. However, okay, working exceptionally well. Not just well, exceptionally well. Palm Beach Downs. I love that workout tab, all right? I just love it. 48-2 breezing, 48-4 breezing. Stretch it to 5, it was a little wet out. 1:04 breezing. Then a 101 breezing, 5 furlongs, and he finishes with a 47-2. This horse is fit, and he's talented. And you know something? If he runs back to how he performed in his debut at Saratoga, okay, or like he performed in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Grade 1, 105 buyer, this horse, the race is for second. I think he may have this in him. Like I said, I'm not making any excuses for him. By the way, I'm saying this right now, and I told this to a lot of my following. Fierceness, because I lost money on him in the Holy Bull. I said that day he's not going to get a dime of my money in the Kentucky Derby, because I don't like horses that fold like that after being eyeballed left or right, and then you expect them to be well in the Kentucky Derby. However, in this race, in this field, the way he's working, this is the Florida Derby, not the Kentucky Derby. I think he's a big-time threat. I think he makes amends. He turns the tables on Hades, and he's going to be my top choice. Finally, Iris's Dream. Tell you a little about this horse, because Mr. Sette had a nice score with him back on February 29th. Gelding, not great connection. But if you watch his last race on the turf, a mile and a 16th, I knew the horse was winning before they even reached the top of the stretch. That's how calm and reserved he was, and he just blew the field away. Easy win, paid $13 too. That was over the Gulfstream turf. Now, strangely enough, Iris's Dream, 7 furlong debut as a juvenile, doesn't show much, was a bit wide, then runs a nice 76, just misses, fought, showed a little tenacity, and then he won effortlessly in his last on the turf. But coming out of a maiden 50 to the Florida Derby, turf to dirt, he's ambitiously entered off that maiden win. I like the connections. I even appreciate Ruiz, but yeah, it's too much to ask for that horse to win, especially from that post. But we'll come running at the end. All right, so because I need to take a break, I'm going to give you my full order of finish for the Florida Derby. Get ready, write it down. Top choice, Fierceness. For all the reasons I said, he's the number 10. Second choice, Conquest Warrior, number 9. Third choice, Catalytic. That's the number 7. Fourth choice, Grand Mo the First. And you know all the stuff I shared about him. Number 5, Hades. Respectfully saying the horse should hang on to be 4th or 5th, placing the horse 5th after winning 3 straight. 6th, number 8, Seminole Chief. 7th, number 11, Iris's Dream. 8th, number 3, Bail Us Out, who, by the way, may improve my rating. I put arrows on my sheet here. Bail Us Out could be his worst of 8th, but could run 5th or 4th. I don't think the horse is going to be good enough to win. But it wouldn't shock me if that horse matured rapidly based on the connections and hit the board. But for the sake of my precise order of finish, he's 8th. Number 9, Frankie's Empire, for all the reasons I shared. 10th, Real Macho, for all the reasons I shared. And the most likely last place finisher will be Ladam Bro, number 6, to finish 11th. Well, there you have it. The 2024 Florida Derby. Give me 1 minute and go get some water. I'm going to come back and I'm going to break down fully for you guys the Arkansas Derby from Oaklawn Park.
DRF All Access Past Performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to drf.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
They're off in the 2023 First Crop Sires Race. Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Matoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vino Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Matoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
Meany, a top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, Grade 2 winner Winstock, and stakes winner Solo Shot. Solo Meany, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a Grade 1 or Grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 2-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average, more than 12 times the stud fee. Solomini, a controversial DQ from being a Grade 1 winner by 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds.
Hey, Mr. Sette, back at you. Have my water, aqua frisch. Let me take some water. All right. 2024. By the way, I'm hoping you really absorbed, digested everything I had to say on the Florida Derby. I'm very confident. I've actually nailed many of them over the years. And I'm confident about it. I'm always confident and I'm always decisive. But there was a lot to absorb, a lot to take down. I hope you took notes. Otherwise, you watch it over and you take more notes. Here we go. Oaklawn Park, the 2024 Arkansas Derby, $1,500,000, Grade 1. Of course, a lot of history in this race. 88 years. We go back to 1936. Was anybody in my audience even alive then? I've watched this race every year for at least 40 years, maybe more. A lot of big names have come out of this as well. So let's get right to it. 10-horse field. Well put together field. Oaklawn Park, post time. Says 6:47 Central. That makes it 7:47 Eastern. So it's late in the day. I'm going to play a nice pick 5. Hope you guys are going to do the same. I feel there are, out of the 10, 5 contenders in the race. You'll obviously know who I emphasize a little more. And on my pick 5 ticket, I'm probably going to use 4 because I was sort of twisting and turning here. And you'll hear that in my analysis. All right, number 1, Will Take It. All right, some bullet points about number 1. First things first, $700,000 yielding purchase, Son of Tappet. Tappet reeks distance, right? Sure enough, they've gone a mile and a 16th, all 3 career races. That's 8.5 furlongs. No sprints, okay? The horse has a couple of, actually all 3 races over the track. Now, keep that in mind, that they know this is a horse built for the distance. They never sprinted him. I watched all 3 races. Absolute throw out the debut. Horse breaking from the extreme outside post. Didn't have a great trip. Didn't even consider him. I saw some level of talent, but still in a mix of the slop in his second start. And his third start, he improved dramatically. One start at the tail end of 23, and then 2 as a 3-year-old over the same surface. Don't underestimate the what I felt were solid, underrated connections with Francisco Arrieta and Eddie Milligan. So I'm not calling this horse a winner, but this horse is going to be a big price, and in my opinion is going to come running late with a good trip, and is probably could hit the board at a big number. Remember, I'm doing this handicapping with my racing form. No morning lines. This is Tuesday before the weekend. The morning lines aren't even out there yet. There's no morning lines. I make the morning lines. So, yeah, this horse is going to be a price I'm going to expect. And going forward with that, I think there's some value with a real good trip. Number 2 is Timberlake. Lots to like about this guy, all right? Brad Cox, you know how successful he is. This particular race, he won in 22 with Cyberknife. He won in 23 with Angel of Empire. Both horses ran big, and both horses moved forward even after that. So Timberlake, making his second start as a 3-year-old, triple 93s. 93 in the Grade 1 Champagne, 93 Beyer in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and a 93 in the Rebel Grade 2. So consistent, reliable, and now he brings in Flavian Pratt, who by coincidence won last year Angel of Empire. I like the horse's racing style. I think he could be a little more tactical than he has shown in recent races. So expect him to be in a better striking position earlier on than later. Ran a big race in his first race as a 3-year-old. He's working well. He has the win over the Oaklawn Park surface. I don't think there's a problem with the stretch out. He's by Into Mischief. $350,000 as a yearling. Absolute contender. Positioned well, working well. Showed ability over several tracks, which is an indication of a horse's talent. Ellis Park, Saratoga, Aqueduct, Santa Anita, Oaklawn Park. Ability. Prepared right. Second race as a 3-year-old. Major contender. I will give you my precise order, but a must use in your multiples. And he's actually going to be my top choice. I'd be very surprised if he ran flat in this race. That's number 2, Timberlake. Number 3 is Dramatic, son of Gunrunner. Kristen Torres up for Stephen Asmussen. Improving. Built for the distance. I'm okay with the body of work. Ran as a juvenile. Didn't light up the sky. But developed. I feel like he's got good size. I took a big long look in the race in the slop. I think he was enamored by the slop. Bigger threat if it's wet. Last race at Oaklawn Park, the Rebel, beaten kind of soundly by Timberlake. But I think the horse moves forward and again is a threat in this field. Number 4 is Time for Truth. Ran on New Year's Eve, broke his maiden, ran a pretty imposing number, came back in the mud, ran well, ran second. It's an Omaha Beach colt. Well bet every one of his races. I trust the connections. Do I feel like this guy may need a little more time? Yeah, to be honest with you, because there's some imposing figures in this race. But the horse is not a bad horse, not a bad colt, and should show some tactical ability, be up early. I just don't know if he's going to last, but he's definitely some sort of consideration in your deeper gimmicks. I don't have him in my top 5, but if you're going really deep in your superfectas or triples, I wouldn't blame you for considering him. Number five is liberal arts. Now, liberal arts, I had to take a double and triple and quadruple look at because there are some things I like to see in a colt that is progressing. Son of Arrogant, built for the distance. I'm okay with the connections. I like that Tyler Gaffleone is coming in to ride the horse. Working well. Another one that moves up if it's wet. So keep that in mind if for some reason it's a wet Saturday. I don't think we're going to get that, but if it happens. Okay with the works. Second race off a layoff. Ran significantly as a juvenile. They laid him off from the end of October to early February. Came back. Was beaten soundly in the wet, in the mud by Mystic Dan, who we're going to get into. But like I said, I think this horse has a step forward. Don't think the horse is going to be good enough to beat this field, but I gave some handicap and respect to number 5, Liberal Arts. Number 6 is Informed Patriot, another horse coming in from the Stephen Asmussen barn, son of Hard Spun. Some things to like, but I wasn't enamored by my film study. I'm not going to use this horse in any of my multiples, nor my exotics. I do not think that this horse is a threat to win. Number 7, however, is Muth. Now, Muth is probably the most talented, fastest horse in the race. However, I have some reservations. So, J.J. Hernandez, top-notch rider, Bob Baffert. And Bob Baffert would want no more than to win this race and say to the committees, I just won the Arkansas Derby and I can't run in the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, everything's well documented. He's suspended. He's not going to be able to run at Churchill Downs. He will be able to run in the Preakness. But, so Bob, good guy, well documented. He's won this race. How many times has Bob won this race? 4 times. He knows how to win in Oaklawn Park. Muth is a very talented colt, son of good magic, $2 million yielding price tag. Not one, $2 million. The horse is not disappointed. He's collected checks. He's run 5 times. He's won 3. He's been in the exactor all 5. I love the way he's working. 6 furlongs, 112 and 2. 6 furlongs flat. 6 furlongs, 112. This is trademark Bob Baffert. So you have 3 consecutive 6 furlong works, and the one prior was for 5 furlongs, but all on the West Coast. So now in the back of your mind, you got to be thinking, will Muth travel well? Has been nowhere but the West Coast, has to go across the country. Even the workouts are in Santa Anita. So he's got to jump into this field at Gulfstream Park. Gulfstream Park, knock my head. At Oaklawn Park. Obviously, this is the Arkansas Derby. But now Bob has done this before. And his body of work is really good. Breaks his mating, 90 buyer, runs in the best pal, grade 3, misses, but he gets beat by a superior horse that day, didn't have the best of trip, runs in a grade 1 American Pharaoh, wins, gets all the money, doesn't disappoint anybody, goes to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Local in Santa Anita. He's beaten, on the square by Fierceness, who's going to be favored and who I like in the Florida Derby. And also Locked was in that race. Comes out of that race, runs in a grade 2 San Vicente, doesn't disappoint, wins going away. I like him. I don't love him because he's going to get the money. He's a likely race favorite. I sort of like the seasoning and the versatility more of Timberlake. But yeah, you can't play the pick 5 or multi-race wagering without using Muth. Now, am I going to play a win bet on him? No, because I think he's going to get beaten. but I respect him enough, and I know that Bob Baffert would want nothing more than to win this race and do that, saying, hey, you're not going to let me in the Kentucky Derby. I just won the Arkansas Derby. So Moot deserves respect. He's got the numbers. The reservation I have is that he's making his second start as a 3-year-old, and he's got to travel, get used to the soil at Oaklawn Park. I know he's there already, but that's the biggest question mark. Does he take to the track? I believe he will, but there's some others in a race that just seem appealing at better betting value prices, okay? Not that he's going to be a great underlay, but watch the board. If Moot is bet down to 3 to 5, that's a strong indication that there's some smart money there. I think it'll be somewhere in the area of 6 or 7 to 5. Favorite or second favorite or co-favorites with Timberlake. Let's move on to the 8. Just Steel. Dwayne Lucas, who is probably closing in on 90, God bless him, a legend. Asmussen is up for Dwayne Lucas, most experienced horse in the field. A lot of good tries, not a dog, son of Justify. Justify's a Triple Crown winner, has 2 races over the Oaklawn Park surface. Would also like it if it got wet. I'm not really happy that the horse as a 3-year-old has regressed in terms of his best races. He's going to be a price strictly for bottom gimmicks for me. All due respect to Dwayne Lucas and his legendary career and the fact that I think he's closing on 90 years old. God bless him. Number 9 is Mystic Dan. A lot of consideration for this horse. This horse was absolutely brilliant in the mud in the Grade 3 Southwest, his last race. Now, and he soundly beat Just Steel and Liberal Arts. So when you soundly beat a horse, it's very difficult to turn the tables entirely. It is the son of Golden Sense. Tons of respect for Ken McPeak and Brian Hernandez. I say this often, Brian Hernandez is one of the more underrated jockeys in the jockey colony, but he does know the racetrack really well. I think he's built for the distance. He began his career with a couple of sprints. He's increased in distance, mile and a 16th, 8.5 furlongs, and so on. His last was really good. Does he move forward from that? Because one thing you have to put into consideration, a 101 buyer is a 101 buyer. Yeah, it was muddy, but he ran off, and he really was ridden out very easy. And I can't dismiss a horse coming off that kind of effort. I can't. The 10 is Imperial Gun. This was pretty easy for me. I like the horse. I think he'll have a career. He is the son of Gunrunner. He opened his career with a very lackadaisical mile over the surface. He's run nowhere else but Oaklawn Park. Trained by Stephen Asmussen, stepping up considerably. But, by the time the 3rd race came around, he was well bet. He burnt a lot of money. I just thought he would show more from a buyer's perspective, get into the high 80s or low 90s. He didn't. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to use him in any of my wages. Well, here's the lineup of all 10. Here's my order of finish. The 2024 Arkansas Derby, Grade 1, very late in the day, nice pick 5 to bet. By the way, for the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby, all you have to do, ask a question. Geo, type. I appreciate your comments, but ask a question if you want a few horses on the undercard who I know I'm going to use in my multiple race wages, in my pick 5, my pick 3, and so on. But this was a tough race to be decisive, and I don't want you to think I'm disrespecting Bob Baffert or Muth, because I told you beforehand, he's got great numbers, he's working brilliantly, he could win the race, but he didn't. I just defaulted and put him in my top 4, but I like 3 who appear to be more appealing based on the full body of work, how they're training, and value. Okay, first Timberlake, the number 2 Timberlake. For all the reasons I mentioned, I think he's ready to go. I have a lot of respect for Brad Cox. For Christ's sake, he won the race the last 2 years. He could win it the 3rd year in a row. My second choice is number 3, Dramatic. For all the reasons I mentioned, at a nice price that can make a very healthy exacta here. Let me just go back to that 1 second and give you my strongest point on him, if I didn't mention. I like the way he's training. He didn't run his best in the Rebel, but, I was really impressed with him the race before, and I think he's going to move forward. Son of Gun Runner, I think he's going to get into the low 90s in his buyer, and if he does, he's going to be in the mix as they run down the lane to potentially upset the field. My third choice, which was a very close third choice between Mystic Dan and Muth, so it's sort of like a 3 and a 3A. Mystic Dan off of that major performance, and Muth, who either one of them could better my rating, win the race, or be in the exacta. But what do I say always? I got to be precise. If I'm going to be precise, I got to go 1 through 10. So Mystic Dan and Muth, 3rd and 4th, or 4th and 3rd, however you slice it. But my main exacta is going to be Timberlake and Dramatic. And I'm going to use Mystic Dan and Muth in my multiples and in my triples and supers. And Muth may make a saver exacta. But my reservation is the travel, and I think the others who are improving may be in a position to upset Muth. My 5th choice is Liberal Arts for all the reasons I mentioned. Nice horse, could better my rating, but I like the 4 above him that seem to be more appealing to me. Number 6 is Will Take It. And I put a little star in my 6th choice. That's the number 1. Tappett's run. And this horse if he gets a good trip at a monster price, the 1 may be somewhere in the area of 30, 40 to 1. And if he's that number, he could make the triple or your super. Who knows? If some of my top 4 falter, who knows? He could find his way in the exacta, more than likely in the triple or a super. But he's my 6th choice, but I'm definitely going to use him in my bottom gimmicks because I'm going to get a tremendous amount of value with a horse who I think is bred to go long and would not be a surprise to me if he got a perfect trip against a pretty moderate to fast pace. The number 7 is Just Steel. He's the number 8 horse, but he's my 7th choice. I don't think he's good enough to win. You heard all the things I said about Dwayne Lucas. And I round out the field. The 4 horse Time for Truth. He's my 8th choice. Could better my rating from 8th to 6th or 5th. But I think it's going to be even tough for him to hit the board at a very best, the superfecta. And the last 2, in my opinion, should be on everybody's do not play list. Number 10, Imperial Gun, and number 6, Informed Patriot. There you have the precise order of the Arkansas Derby. A very bettable race. Intriguing in a sense, because when I looked at the body of work, almost by default, I was going to put Muth on top. And if I see him over the track, if I see an excessive amount of action, I may make a game time decision. But the 3 I mentioned above him, Remember, I'm using all four in the multiples. I just feel there's significant overlay value for horses that are performing at a very high level and that they're likely to move forward. That's the way I see it. Okay? And, I talked about some that may really be at a significant, generous price. So, there you have it. Florida Derby, Arkansas Derby, big Saturday. Stay tuned to Past the Wire TV. The week after, Easter, April 6th, Wood Memorial, St. Anita Derby, the Bluegrass Stake. The Bluegrass Stake is going to have some heavy hitters. You're going to have Sierra Leone, a major player on the Kentucky Derby radar and the Kentucky Derby trail. And then we all sit back for 3+ weeks and wait for the first Saturday in May. And the appetizers are going to be done. We get to eat our meal. Kentucky Derby 150. The Preakness a few weeks after that. And then 3 weeks after that at Saratoga, because Belmont is going through a significant amount of renovation. The Belmont Stakes at Saratoga early on, and it won't be 1.5 miles. It's going to be 1.25 miles. A little asterisk on the Test of Champions this year. But stay with us. Remember, questions. Geo, who do you like on the undercard? Who do you like in your pick 5? Where are you going to find a wealth of information? I make money. Do you want to make money? I can't be right all the time, but I'm right very often. Everybody have a good day. Root on Duke in the final Sweet 16. I was a Duke fan even before my daughter went to the school. So I'm high on Duke. Got my lucky Duke hat on. Let's go. Let's have a big day at the races. On 3. 1, 2. Hold on. Sip of water. 3. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Be decisive. See you guys next time. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless America.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com